you see a lot of content online about, manifest your desires, manifest your dream life, manifest your dream partner, attract this, attract that. Just a lot of this sort of content about law of attraction and manifesting and this sort of thing. And I've been thinking about this the past few days. And I think it's a very shallow way to sort of look at spirituality, to kind of use it for your own worldly pleasure, your own worldly desires, to fulfill these sorts of worldly desires. Now, it's important to note that there is not really anything inherently wrong with desiring things in life. It's just a natural part of your spiritual evolution, or it was for me at least. You have to sort of go through, if you're familiar with the spiral dynamics model, which is a model used in evolutionary psychology to explain how humans evolve, chasing worldly things is a part of that model. It's just something that you have to sort of go through. You have to chase, you have to acquire a lot of money, you have to acquire a lot of status, fame, maybe relationships, this sort of thing, to sort of realize that it's not the answer. Try telling a homeless person that's been broke their whole life that money is not the answer. It's probably not going to work. They're not really going to understand. I think you sort of have to go through this phase of chasing worldly desires just to kind of prove to yourself that it's not going to ever really fulfill you. Now, some people don't have to go through that phase. They just can see it from other people, and that's enough for them. But back to what I was saying about, manifesting and law of attraction. I don't think that whether or not that's real, that's not really the point of this video. The point I want to make is that when you truly evolve spiritually, when you really start growing, when your consciousness raises, when you're truly really committed to this path and you start changing for the better because of it, the ego mind starts decreasing. You start feeling more love and compassion for other people. You're, meditating maybe regularly, all those sorts of things. You're going to actually naturally lose interest in wanting to fulfill any kind of worldly desire. So when I see this sort of content, when I see these videos about, telling you how to attract this or how to attract that, it just seems all very hollow and vapid to me. I don't think that that's really what spirituality is about. I think the true spiritual seeker, and I'm not saying I'm necessarily the true spiritual seeker, but it's very important to me. It's something that I've dedicated my life to the past 5 years. What I've noticed is what actually happens is the opposite. You don't want to necessarily attract, you don't want to necessarily attract material things. You don't want to necessarily fulfill worldly desires, although they still may be there. But what actually really happens is when your awareness increases, you start recognizing them more and you see how foolish they are. You see how empty it is to chase things of the world. And I'm talking mostly about very materialistic, sort of these materialistic desires. I'm not talking about attracting things like more love or wisdom or knowledge or, good relationships or health or things like that. Those are all good things to want to attract. And maybe I think in some sense the idea of manifestation and law of attraction can work for those sorts of things. I think that by just simply maintaining a very positive attitude in life, by maintaining a lot of positivity, that you can, I wouldn't say fulfill those desires, but you can attract more, better health, more love, more of those sorts of things, those sorts of meaningful endeavors, meaningful pursuits. But for example, I've seen people talk about the law of attraction and how, if you wanted a Mercedes, for example, that you should just envision yourself sitting in a Mercedes, and you should just do this multiple times a day. You should write on your mirror, you should print out a picture of the Mercedes and put it on your mirror. And eventually you'll get it. That's how the law of attraction works. You have to really feel that you have the Mercedes and eventually you'll get the Mercedes. This idea of thinking that, you know, that these sorts of things are what's going to truly fulfill you. It defies the whole purpose of this path. It defies the whole purpose of like Jesus and Buddha and Adi Shankara and Ramana Maharshi and all of their teaching, all of these great spiritual masters. The idea of looking at the world through from a non-dual perspective is that it makes no difference about really what happens in the world. Whether you have the Mercedes or not, or whether you have the perfect relationship, whether you have the wealth, whether you have that perfect job, it ultimately shouldn't make a difference on how you feel. Everything that you need is within you. It's deep inside of you. And that's the point of this path. It's to let go of the material world. It's to let go of necessarily always needing to achieve, always needing to be something other than whatever's happening right now. That's literally the whole point of this path. So that's why I think law of attraction and like manifestation is kind of nonsense, because it's like all that does is reinforce the idea that you need something else outside of you to be fulfilled. And that's ultimately defies the whole point. It defies the whole purpose of doing this kind of work. Now, there's obviously nothing wrong with wanting things in life. There's nothing wrong with wanting to better yourself, to wanting to achieve, to wanting to progress in life, to even wanting a little bit of status, to want to be somebody important. I think these things are just perfectly normal, part of the human condition. To want to be in a relationship, whatever your thing is, we all have things. But I think it's more about letting go of the idea that this is what you need to feel fulfilled and to feel, you know, what we call happy, the happiness that we're all searching for. The whole idea, it's like the number one root of all spiritual teachings, is that it's never going to be found in any of that kind of stuff. You can still do all of that. There's nothing wrong with that. But the true happiness, the true fulfillment that you're seeking is always going to be found within you. It's not going to be found in anything that you can acquire. It's not going to be found in anything external. And the more that you kind of believe this law of attraction stuff, it's moving you away further from what you should actually be focusing on, which is things like self-love, having more compassion for yourself, gratitude, you know, learning to be grateful for what you do have. Maybe I don't really understand law of attraction that much, but it's not something I ever really put a whole lot of energy into, but from what I can see from it, that's really what that's really mostly what it seems. Now, to go back to what I was saying earlier, I think it's very important to always maintain a very sort of glass half full positive mentality with anything that you do in life, because I think in that case, something good, something beneficial will always come out of it. I say this all the time in my videos, like even the bad situations in life, even though they might seem, the way that you perceive them might seem as terrible situations, they might seem bad, there was probably some sort of important lesson or growth experience in that you needed to go through. And that is what non-duality essentially is. It's when you take the mind out of the equation and you see that everything happens for a reason. Everything is here for a purpose. It's either here to teach us something. It's either here because it was something we earned in some sense. Only the mind can make that decision of what's good and what's bad. But what happens is you naturally lose interest in really wanting anything from the world. And when I say naturally, it'll happen very, very naturally. It's a very slow sort of progression as you evolve. Why do you think that all of like the most enlightened sages and all of these guys that I put the quotes on my YouTube community page, like, why do you think they all lived such simple, non-materialistic lives? They didn't just one day wake up and decide to do that. It happened. And why do you think they're all, for the most part, older? It happened. That's just what spiritual evolution is. You lose interest in the world. You have this sort of dispassion for worldly affairs, for worldly material things. You just start realizing that it all seems so childish and futile to just constantly chase one thing after the other. you just see that your happiness can't ever be, it can't ever come from anything of the world. And this is why you start genuinely finding happiness and fulfillment in the simple things in life, in being able to sit in solitude and meditate and contemplate nature, exposure, these sorts of things. Those will sort of become the things that make you feel fulfilled. It will no longer be found in anything material. It won't be found in other people. It won't necessarily be found in worldly achievements like the promotion at work or whatever your thing is, the college degrees, whatever. Again, nothing wrong with those things per se. And it doesn't really matter what worldly things might still be important to you. That's perfectly fine, but it's more about coming to an understanding. A lot of spiritual work is just about having a heightened sense of awareness and beginning to understand, as opposed to necessarily changing anything about the way that you live. The lifestyle changes will come gradually and naturally, but it'll happen over a longer period of time, more slowly. And like you'll notice too, I've noticed for myself, is that the things that you probably once were fulfilled by, or things that you think are going to fulfill you because they always did, they'll just no longer, they just won't really do it for you anymore. And trust me when I tell you that this is a good thing. This is a good thing. It's something that you should not resist. When you lose a dispassion for certain friendships, or lose passion for certain friendships, for certain achievements, for material things, for money, it might just feel very, very unfulfilling to you. And this is probably a sign of progress. Now, if nothing feels fulfilling at all, then you might be suffering from some sort of depression. And, it's not that nothing feels fulfilling at all. It's that worldly stuff no longer feels fulfilling. You find fulfillment in the simple things, in spiritual work, personal development work, this sort of thing. Anyway, that's my spiel for today. I hope, I probably kind of jumped around a little bit. I was just sort of filming this off the top of my head, so I hope it was informative, and I hope you enjoyed it.